Paul Governor,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and will obey the laws of the United States
and of the state of Maine,
and of the state of Maine,
that I will,
and that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter and ordinances
of the Charter and ordinances
of the town of
of
Bucksport,
the town of Bucksport,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
in the duties of the office,
town council member
town council member
of the town of
of
Bucksport.
the town of Bucksport.
Roll call.
Mark Eastman.
Here.
Paul Bissonnette.
Here.
David Key absent. Peter Stewart.
Here.
Daniel Ormsby.
Here.
Paul Govan.
Here.
Robert Carmichael Jr.
Presentation of any town council recognitions. Don't believe we have any. Consider minutes of the previous meetings. We have town council minute meetings from both January 10th, 2019 and December 13th, 2018.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second from the public, from council. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Receive and review correspondence and documents. First one is Down East Transportation Monthly Ridership Report, December 2018. Looks like we're still having a very good output with that. So. And the second one is Bucksport Police response to Corona on January 12th of this year. And I know the chief was here, but I know he had to run. That was just the report of them going over to help a person on the bridge, wasn't it?
It was a request from the state police for the town to respond to a person on the bridge. So that's what that was, but our arrangement requires that you be notified when anyone leaves the community for service.
And from what I understand, our officer did a pretty good job of that too, didn't he? It was took care of the situation before the state police showed up.
Yes.
All right. Next item is ordinances to consider or introduce. First one we have is first reading of amendments to Appendix K. Jeff is here. Yeah.
Good evening, Jeff Hammond, Code Officer. The ordinance that's presented to you tonight for first reading is a series of changes the planning board is recommending to Appendix K, the town's land use ordinance. You have in your packet a memorandum that I prepared that summarizes the changes. So what I was thinking of doing is just reading the summary, and we can stop if you want to talk more details about things. I will show you a picture of the zoning map to describe where the proposed RP changes will take place. So the first proposed change I guess I can move this out of the way, don't I? Just give me a second to sign on here. It's a little on the small side, but let's see if I can back this up a little bit. So this represents the changes that are proposed for RP. The board recommends that properties placed in resource protection in 2009, as required by DEP, be removed from resource protection and returned to their previous zoning district, which is limited residential, which is now allowed by DEP. The board also recommends that a certain lot on Duck Cove Road that is partially in resource protection be rezoned so that the full lot is in limited resource protection, a zoning district that's less restrictive for residential development. The definition of the resource protection district is amended to be consistent with the zoning reversals. So the areas highlighted in blue are the areas that are now in RP that we were required to put in RP back in 2009. And as I just said, DEP now has reversed their position, and we can take them out of RP if we want to. We don't have to, but the town can do that. The planning board reviewed all these areas, and they believe that they all should be taken out of RP. They held a public hearing on January 8th and received some input on these changes, including 2 areas where landowners felt they wanted to keep the RP zoning. This area right here is one. And the other area is a portion of the RP district that affects the lot where the person believed they wanted to keep RP. The planning board considered those requests, but they decided ultimately that if any change of RP is going to be made, then we should do all of them. Landowners can still place restrictions on their properties if they feel they need to be more restrictive than what limited residential provides for. That's a prerogative, but the board decided to do all or nothing, and they chose to do all. Any questions about that? So the next group of changes are land uses that the planning board is recommending be allowed in the industry development and industry development shoreline overlay districts. And these include auction houses, meeting facilities, indoor recreational facilities, research facilities, schools with restrictions, school administrative offices with restrictions, small educational, scientific, nature interpretation facilities, dormitories, public bathrooms, public recreation, public information centers, business offices, boat launching facilities, and on-site service businesses. The reason for these proposed changes is it reflects a recommendation of the comprehensive plan to take a look at possibly allowing other smaller commercial and public uses in the area that's now restricted for essentially for heavy industry uses. Next change is the board recommends that stairs and ramps outside shoreline areas be subject to permitting when they serve public buildings, and that all stairs and ramps inside shoreline areas be subject to permitting regardless of size. This is one of 2 changes that came as a result of requests made by members of the Senior Resource Committee to provide oversight on stairs that serve public buildings. Right now, it's unless you're in a shoreline zone, you don't need a permit to replace a set of stairs or a ramp for a public building. This change will require that. And along the same line, the board recommends that accessibility standards be added to Section 12 and apply to new site improvements and alterations to existing site improvements, as may be reviewed by the planning board or code enforcement officer. So a site plan submitted to the planning board that shows a parking lot, the board is going to have to ensure that the correct number and type of accessible parking spaces are required, that there's accessible routes to the building, and the code enforcement officer will be responsible for ensuring that the interior features that are required by ADA are in that building when the application comes in for a building permit. Next change is the board recommends that home-based business offices be exempt from permitting when customers do not come to the office and no products are shipped from the home. An example of that is an internet business where you conduct all your business on the internet, products is shipped through drop shipping or some other method, and customers don't come to your home. The business is essentially visible. So the board felt we require a permit now. Why? Why require a permit for that and pay a $25 fee for essentially no review? The next one is the board recommends that small sawmill facilities be added as a specific type of manufacturing facility that's subject to noise standards contained in the ordinance. A definition for a small sawmill facility is also proposed. This came about as a result of a citizen complaining about a sawmill facility on I'm drawing a blank on the road, but it's off Jacob Pond Road that currently is not permitted. It's operating out of a building that was permitted for storage, but there's a sawmill operation going on there, and this change will allow the town to address that and to ensure that it's properly permitted and that it will not violate the noise standards that we have now in the ordinance and apply to any type of commercial use. The next one is the board recommends that one family, 1.5 family, and 2 family dwellings be allowed in the C2 district. And I'm going to show you that map. So this was the first proposal that the board considered, which was to simply change the zoning of this lot here. This is, for reference, this is Bayview Avenue. And this dark line here represents the zoning boundary between Bayview and the C2 district, which is this entire area here. The board first considered changing this, which would allow the new owner of that property to add more residential use. Currently, in the C2 district, 1 family, 1.5 family, and 2 family uses are prohibited. They used to be allowed before we repealed and replaced the land use ordinance in 2010. This district was called the Route 1 Commercial District, and all those uses were allowed. I think the change came as a result of an attempt to emphasize more commercial uses in this area along Route 1 than residential. Nothing has come of it yet, but the comprehensive plan is now taking a different direction. The comprehensive plan is suggesting that the town take a look at possibly allowing multiple types of uses in this area. So they decided to do that instead of focusing on just this one lot because the issue with changing the zone for one lot is that it benefits only that lot owner, and that's something that's referred to as spot zoning and could be subject to a legal challenge. So the board decided just to go back to the original recommendation, which was to allow the residential uses in the entire C2 district. And the definition for the C2 district is also amended to remove the word limited. So it's an area suitable for commercial uses, non-commercial uses, and residential uses. Essentially, it's the same description as applies to the C1 district. The last change is a change to the definition of school. Right now we have definitions for private schools, public schools, and post-secondary educational facilities. The planning board is recommending to combine all those into one label called school. And so that change has been made, and there's examples of, well, I'm not sure exactly what it is. The examples given in the definition for schools include all those private schools, public schools, colleges, academies. All those are considered types of schools. So as I said, the planning board held their first and second reading and their mandatory public hearing, and they did receive some input from the public. Not a lot, but they did. There were some members who were interested in the changes, and they dealt mainly with the changes of RP. There was a question raised about why, if DEP reversed their mandatory requirement that it be in RP in 2012, why it took so long to get it to this point where we're talking about amending our ordinance. And the answer to that is, in 2012, there were a lot of things happening in town. There was change in management. We had a mill closure in 2014, and the planning board actually decided that they wanted to wait to do any changes to our zoning map until the comprehensive plan review was completed, and that was done just not too long ago, 2017. So that explains why it took so long. And actually, I don't think it really has presented any hardship that I'm aware of to the properties that are in RP, because most of those areas are in remote parts of the town where there's no development. But nevertheless, we're dealing with it now, and hopefully DEP has already taken a preliminary look at these changes, and I think they'll approve them once it gets to them.
Any questions? This is the first reading. We'll have our second reading and take action. We're going to have a public hearing also. So we'll have,
You need to vote to have a,
Yeah, public hearings are no longer mandatory at the council, but you can have them if you decide by majority vote.
okay, so we will go to a second reading and public hearing on the same at the next meeting, correct?
Mhm.
All right, any questions from the public?
Ralph Robertson, resident Bucksport, Maine. I take a little bit of, I don't know, 2009, we went through this whole deal with going through this and making it RP, resource protection, because the state or government mandated that they, some sort of numbering system, that anybody was over 8 or 9 points was automatically going to be resource protected. 75 buffer goes to 250-foot buffer. I come to every meeting in that time frame to fight this thing. I don't know how he doesn't remember that I was here fighting
Well,
it.
we're not going to talk about different people. But,
Okay, well, somebody doesn't remember that I was here.
okay.
And to think that it didn't affect anybody. I got 10 acres that are bounded by this resource, well, actually on 32, but 10 of it was resource protected. Went from 75-foot buffer to 250-foot buffer. When that was voted in, I had 30 days that it went into effect. In 30 days, I cut off that 10 acres of land. I almost killed myself doing it because I was struggling in snow 2-3 feet deep, and I made an unfortunate action where I dropped a tree onto a communications line that was bisecting my property to a camp out back, and it put it on under the snow, and I went to top the thing off, and it hit me right there. So to have this come a letter, I don't know if the fact was that letter from the DEP in somebody's hands in 2012, and he just
I don't know what I would say what we're correcting something that should have been corrected back then. It's here now.
okay.
The time
But I
has
just want to
passed.
make it clear
And
that
I-
to think that nobody was affected by it is
I absolutely understand that, Ralph.
is just
I
You know.
I can understand that,
Okay.
but we're trying to make it right
okay.
now, okay?
Number two, why do we have to have all these hearings when we've already had the hearings at the planning board?
That's, the planning board is a vehicle to get it to the council. The council rules say that we have to have those hearings. That's something that's been voted on by the council.
Okay, I just thought that once it came to the council, you guys could decide.
Unfortunately, that's not the way it is. We have the rules that are set in place that we've decided on. So the next meeting, it will be decided on.
I
the
thought you had
February
to-
7th
February
meeting.
What is it?
7th and 13th.
I thought you said something about a...
I'm sorry, the 14th. It's the 14th, and it will become effective on February 7 days later, February 21st.
I asked that same question, Ralph. I think I was at the last
Oh, yeah.
planning board meetings, and I asked the same question, our frustration, why
Yeah,
can't...
just this
way
whole
the
thing
process
just,
goes,
just it's been, here I am, just, I don't know.
We're going to have it
Okay,
fixed.
I
We're gonna have it
appreciate
fixed.
that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So, have a motion to set it,
Motion to set a hearing and a second, well, we're going to do the second reading.
second reading and then a public hearing on that date. We have a motion and a second for setting this for a second reading and a public hearing on February 14th, is it, Kathy? Is that
Yes.
February 14th? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 8, discussion items. One item is committee assignments.
After the, there was light. At the last meeting, councilors were asked to submit their areas of interest, and so the purpose for this being on here, so it's in the packet, people can see what the committee compositions are for this coming year. Mark Eastman was elected the chair of regulatory review. As each of these committees meet, they will elect a chair from within their membership. So,
Any questions? Hopefully everybody's satisfied. I went with them. Thank you for all for putting in that time, and we'll get those done. Thank you. Agenda items. First item is to adopt Resolve 2019-35 to commit sewer bills for October 1st to December 31st, 2018. anything?
This is our fourth quarter of 2018 sewer billing. It has to be voted on by the council to make it legally collectible by the town.
And just for number's sake, sewer fees are due October 1st to December 31st, and the amount was $192,112.42.
That's correct.
So, any from the public? Council?
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. We had an item B on the agenda. We're going to table that. The town manager has other information.
We had, I received an email from an interested resident who had information that may allow us to get this heating system upgraded at a much less expensive way than what had been proposed to do that. So I sent it back to the fire department and asked them to investigate this, and we'll bring it back.
Resignations, appointments, assignments, and elections. Do we have anything there? Item 11 is approval of a quitclaim deed for Troy Sheehan, map 52, lot 20, 29, and 2010 tax liens.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further from the public? Council? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Town manager's report, item 12.
Okay. Since we have two new councilors and a new mayor for the first time in many years, I would like to suggest that we schedule a meeting of the council to discuss our process and our council rules. We have a goals and objectives session on February 21st, but I would like to schedule this session for 6 o'clock prior to the February 14th council meeting. And this is just to sort of reset the council in terms of making it, if anyone has suggestions for changes to the rules or how we do what we do, that it would be a good idea for the council to have a meeting to talk about that. Obviously, it's open to the public for that as well, but it would be specifically for the purpose of defining how you're going to work together.
I notice we have two committee meetings to schedule for that day. That's something that needs to get done that day, if we push those to the...
The Finance Committee could, I believe, is a very short, I've lost Rich. I don't think the Finance Committee is a long, and I'm trying to think what the infrastructure
The finance committee is in reference to a microloan.
is a microloan
Okay, and
application.
Infrastructure and Property Committee? Do you know what
Oh,
that
that's a request by a member of the fire department for that committee to consider restoration work on a truck.
Okay.
So that,
So we can go
again,
6
those are-
o'clock and then do 6:30, 6:45 type of thing when we get
Yep.
to that? Okay. Any questions or anything from the public or council on that?
What is this one?
What's that?
no, that's the
Okay, so-
that's the 14th of February.
6 o'clock we start?
Yes.
Okay.
At the next council meeting, I'll be presenting a
Oh,
budget.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are there going to be, the rules that are written right now in the charter and in the codes, those are what you're going to be going over, that's what you're going by, or are there going to be changes made to them prior to that?
No, we can't make any changes to the charter. That we're just going to discuss how we operate up here, making sure that we're following the process that we're going through. We've got a bunch of new people.
Okay, so if I read that up, I'm going to be on,
Yeah.
thank you.
At the next council meeting, I'll also present the budget review schedule for this year. It's my intent to keep that budget review meetings on Thursday nights. We've done that traditionally. It's the council meetings plus the other Thursday nights in the months of April and May, generally speaking, and then June sometimes. Unless there's some objection, Thursday seems to be the night that most people have set aside for the council. I met with Jeff McGlynn today from AIM for an update on their plans, and the power generation project is nearly complete. And demolition of the biomass, the conveyor systems, and the other items on the land that's being purchased by Whole Oceans should begin within the next 2 weeks. So you're going to see a dramatic change in the landscape on that property within the next 2 weeks. Whole Oceans is the last day for the person from Belfast who appealed the permit that was dismissed by the chair of the Board of Environmental Protection. Tomorrow is the last day for her to request that the full BEP hear that standing issue. She has not submitted that at this time, so I am hopeful that she doesn't, and that clears the biggest roadblock to closing the sale for Whole Oceans, is that having that license be finalized. And Maine Maritime has extended their due diligence period for the purpose of updating the Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental on it, because there's time limits on those. The Phase 1 had expired. It needs an update on that in order to make that move forward, but that is still in positive progress.
Any questions? Thanks. 13 is public hearings or approval of licenses and permit. We have a pole permit for 309 Town Farm Road.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Anything from the public? Anything more from the council? All those in favor? Opposed? Permit approved. 14, discussion of items not on the agenda for the council and the public. I'll open it up to the public first. Any items that you want to discuss that aren't on the agenda? I knew Richard had something. So.
Just one little thing. The economic development out of my budget took some money out to put in a nice supplement, 8-page supplement that was in the this week's Friday's Bangor Daily News. Half-page ad equal to a full-page ad. I did the write-up, got the pictures for them and everything, and then we had a lot of local sponsors from a lot of the local businesses and everything. But the Bangor Daily did a bang-up job with this advertisement.
And it's also on their online.
It's online. Yeah, we also got the digital version of it as well. Whole Oceans took out the back page, full-page advertisement as well. So a lot of participation. So.
Good job, Rich.
Any other public comments?
Jim Morrison, East Bucksport. Is there any plan on updating any of the information that's on the town website, so that, you know, I study a lot of stuff in that, and geez, I get stopped up because I can't find information that should be there. One of the things I located was that I think it was one of the plans that I was trying to read. All the odd pages were there, all the even pages weren't in there. You know, so you read along and you just kept losing a whole page of information. Is there any plan on
If you
on
find stuff
working
like that,
on-
if everybody finds like, if they could send an email to the town manager so they can look into that, because I don't know who
Yeah,
controls the website.
Well,
I
we
don't-
Yeah, there's-
have been actually working on an update to our website. It needs to be updated for a number of reasons. One is that there's a lot of information that's, some of it's outdated and some of it's difficult to access or find, so we have had a process for doing that. Jim Morrill has been assisting because we also have to make our website accessible for people with disabilities, and that's another piece of it that's more time-consuming than what we've been able to do that. But yes, anytime you find things that clearly what happened is something probably got scanned in, and it wasn't scanned in as a 2-page to read both sides of the pages if
Right.
you're only seeing one. But if you let me know what those are, I will get. But we
Yeah, I
are
mean,
in the process of that review, but it isn't done.
I mean, last year I was reading in the RSU, and I found an information thing in there that they were getting ready to build a new school. That's a little outdated there, I think. You know?
It is a work in progress, but we are trying to get there. Thank you.
Right, just a question over there. Is that something we should look at in a budget year at some point in time, a major overhaul. And we know that now society is much more digital, and people are, as Jim points out, people are going to those resources, whether it's social media or whatever. We just completed a major new project, new website at my business, and it is a big undertaking, but maybe it's something we should look at down the road from a budget standpoint, not just for the structural piece of it, but how do we manage it? What kind of resources do we need to manage?
We're doing the same thing with the academy. It's probably time to look at that, yeah.
Yeah, like, when my son moved to Gorham, I went on there and I started reading some of the information about Gorham and how they work down there. And I mean, if someone was wanting to come to Bucksport, you know, and they get on this website and it's not updated and they're looking at, well, they're getting ready to build another new school, you know, which spot to go. And they find out it's 12 years ago it was built.
And one of the challenges we've found is that and a lot of people probably have, is that it's great to have the website, but the second part of it is you got to have somebody. We're struggling at work right now. Who's going to manage? You know, who's going to be the person or persons that manage it? So we have to. If we go in that direction at some point, we need to put the resource into that piece so that when you go there, it's not outdated, as you point out.
It's just recently that we went on board with the RSU to have a full-time IT person, correct?
That we're contracting with them for IT resources, and they are working on this project for us now, which will have a budget component to an upgrade. We use GovOffice, which is many communities use it because it's the most cost-effective, and it is also fairly easy to update, but the issue becomes that you have umpteen departments and we don't have one person updating for every single department, so you have some things that are there and some things that are not. And we've also changed the way we do business in some ways. It's only been since 2015 that packets, more than just an agenda, was posted. You know, all the information goes on there, but the way in which it's scanned to get it on the website makes a difference about whether it's searchable, whether you can find it by searching. So there's a lot to this that we have a huge amount of information, and making it available in a way that people can find it, it's easy to access and easy to use is the challenge for us at this point.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? Anything from the council? I have one thing. We took a vote last meeting to deal with Wilson Hall. And as soon as I took the vote and I left here, I started thinking about how we do business, and we get giddy every time, you know, especially with Wilson Hall. We see the first shiny object that comes in and we make a motion to talk about it, you know, and we make a snap decision to do something. We saw it with Dick Campbell, we saw it with, you know, Larry. I don't think anybody here knew that was coming. All of a sudden it's in front of us, and we make a decision to do that. We have a process in place to get rid of stuff. You know, the feeling of the council the other night, we had a 6-1 vote, I think it was, to sell it, you know, to give it to somebody. I think our process should be, and it's not an auction, but we have a bid process. If we sell a truck, we put it up to bid. We have a piece of property that we're trying to get rid of. Let's have a bid process and see what's going to show up with that. You know, we put a process out there for a month. We have a time limit. We may not get anything. We only have that one bid come in, but at least we've given it a fair shake. I don't think what we did the other day was. I walked out of here and I don't think it was a fair thing to do. I think we really need to make sure that the process is covered. I think we need to make sure that we're doing it. You know, we talk about transparency. I think we need to make sure we're doing it the right way.
Yeah, because if we were going forward with the $65,000 for Google alone, we might have had more interest from other parties too.
Somebody comes forth says $2, and you know, I mean, you don't know. I think we short ourselves sometimes. We you know, there are, and I said this to myself the other day. We've been so long with Wilson Hall, but yet we act so fast. You know, this thing has been going on and on and on, but yet as soon as like I said, the first shiny thing shows up, we make a decision. And I think we're doing an injustice when we do that. So I would like to see us remove that resolve that we have scheduled for next week and do a bid process and see what the heck is out there. You know, it's not going anywhere in the next 2 weeks, it's not going anywhere in the next month. I think it's the fair thing to do.
I don't know, I'm kind of torn about it. I mean, I hear your point. Bid process is one thing. In this case, the guy that happened to be the person that stepped forward wasn't just somebody off the street that might bid on a truck or bid on this or that. It was somebody that had invested, some time in it. So to me, it was a little bit easier to move in the direction we did.
And I think we can set some parameters on it. I mean, somebody put in a bid and you got to show some financial resolve behind yourself. I think there's a way that you can mirror that or put that out there so it at least gives everybody an opportunity. There may be somebody out there that, that night they didn't know that was happening. They're sitting there with $500,000 in their pocket just waiting for that opportunity, and we kind of threw it away. I think it's, I just think it might be the fair thing to do.
I wasn't part of it. I wasn't here. But I think if we look at it, and I agree with the mayor, in the aspect of every piece of property that the town sells, puts it out for bid. And actually, it might have been a violation of the process. Because you sold a piece of property that the town owned and didn't put it out for bid, and it might be a violation.
I couldn't find anything about that bid process when I was looking.
I don't know how that all works.
And I don't.
Well, the town has put it out for bid on 2 different occasions, and that's, once you've gone through those processes, your decision to go in an alternate manner is defensible because you have gone through that process. Since I've been here twice, we put it out for bid and sought proposals and all sorts of things. If you decide, because you didn't vote to sell it the other night, you voted to have me prepare a resolve for your consideration. There was, what I've told people and what I believe to be the truth is you didn't sell the building. You asked for it to be brought back at that meeting where you would up or down it, whichever. So if you want to alter what you asked for at the last thing, you'll have to add something to the agenda, and because it's not on the agenda for tonight for any kind of action.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Or the other piece is when that resolve comes up, there's a vote taken, and if it's voted one way or the other, then we make a decision.
That's right.
If it's, I just say if it's voted down, then we have to decide what we want to do.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I agree. I think going back to that meeting, one of the main considerations for me was that, in fact, it was someone in the community who has been in the community for a while, has an established business here, a reputation, and also an established love of Wilson Hall. Said a number of times that I really have to wonder where Wilson Hall has sat vacant for over 40 years. Whether or not that in and of itself determines the usefulness of Wilson Hall. But that said, if in the instance of what we talked about the other night, I think if Mr. Wall can make a go of that, it certainly behooves this council to consider that. That all said, I don't know that I necessarily disagree with you either, in that while it's probably unlikely, going back to my earlier point of that building has sat there for 40 years and there hasn't exactly been people chomping at the bit to do something with it. But maybe there is that person out there. But to me, the difference the other night was that you have someone who has a track record of not only a love of the building, but somebody who is probably not going to just abandon that building as we move forward. Because it would be a tragedy, I think, if that building becomes this town's problem and this council's problem again several years from now. Now, that all said, I will also state that as we consider that resolved next week, there are some questions that I'd like to have answered. I mean, I can understand why Mr. Wall at that meeting, without knowing what this council's decision was going to be, to not want to talk about who the contractor is. I'm going to want to talk about who that contractor is next week. I'm going to want to talk about what those development plans are. I'm going to want to get into the specifics of the financial plan that he has for that building, that type of stuff. So, and I'm sure this council is too. But that said, again, I also think that the point that you've brought up this evening is a valid one, and may be something that this council considers moving forward.
I also agree with the mayor that I felt like coming in at the last meeting, I had this piece of paper in front of me with like this limited information, and it was almost like this immediate vote, like we're going to vote on it, we're going to do it right here. And I feel like we jumped the gun. I feel like this council is not the same council that has been here throughout Whistler Hall. So I think we need some time as a group to figure that out and go through those processes. And we are also talking about $65,000 of taxpayer money, which we need to make sure that's the best use of it, so.
I understand that there's work being done on the proposal or the agreement. Is that correct? Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll have that for sure at our next meeting.
Questions such as Paul has raised and which Councillor Ormsby have raised in terms of money and how that works and what the guarantees are and what kind of insurances are required and all of the well, the information that you asked me to put together that Rich has done the legwork on in order to be able to quantify exactly what this would be and how it would work.
And my assumption is just for the council, we normally get the agendas Monday or Tuesday of that week, so please take a chance to look that over and not wait until Thursday at 7 to take a look at it, please.
Are you going to get us that full agreement?
It's all public. It will all be out there with the packet.
Anything else? Anybody else have anything else for discussion? All right. Thank you for that. Upcoming public hearings, designation of topics for committee assignment, scheduling committee meetings. I think we talked about it a little earlier, but we have an infrastructure and property committee meeting. I can't remember who's on that, but I'm sure you guys know, and a finance committee. Plus, you want to have a council session.
The council, if we do the council session at 6,
Yep.
and then infrastructure at 6:30, and finance at 6:45.
6:45. We should have plenty of time to get all through that. Okay. And again, I don't think we're going to hurry through our council rules. That's going to be an ongoing thing for the time that we're here. It's just a good starting place to see where we're at. So, you get all that, Kathy?
Yes.
All right. Item 16, adjournment.
Motion. Second.
Motion for adjournment. A second. All those in favor? Motion adjourned.